In this next lesson, we're going to start to get into some creative lighting. Over the years, I've developed different ways to try to make things stand out with light, just to do things a little bit different to give an extra edge to the photography. When digital photography first came out, commercial photographers had a limited type of camera to use. We had the very first scanning back cameras, and we had the first 3-shot cameras, and that's what I used, was a 3-shot camera. Basically, this was a digital back that went on a medium format camera with a red, green, and blue filter wheel in front of the lens. And everything was tethered to the computer. You click the shutter, a red filter would rotate in front of the lens. It would take a black and white shot. A green filter would rotate in front of the lens, take another shot, about 15 seconds between each one, and then the blue filter would come, it would take another shot, another 15 seconds would go by, and a total of about 45 seconds had gone by, you'd get a photograph on your monitor. And so this was the very first type of shooting that commercial photographers back in the very early 90s. Well, when I got one of these first cameras, I noticed that, okay, that's the way it works normally, but what happens if you start breaking the rules? Because breaking the rules is what really makes the difference. You find out what the rules are, you get them locked down, and then you break them. So I decided to start moving the lights around between the exposures. First I tried moving the camera between all 3 exposures. Then I tried moving the subject. Then all of a sudden I tried moving the lights, and I realized if the light didn't fall down on the set exactly the same way on the red, green, and blue channel, it made an overlap of color that made a very bizarre and colorful look. And it was a way to add a little color into things that just don't have that. So we're going to try that effect today, but we don't use 3-shot cameras anymore. Nobody does. So I've learned to adapt the same principle from the 3-shot camera over to the 1-shot camera. It involves taking multiple photographs where the light is not going to be in the same position, and then later on in the second part of this, we'll bring these into Photoshop and we will exchange the channels, and we'll borrow one channel from different shots, and we'll see what kind of cool things we can bring together. To start out, I'm using a Canon 1DS Mark III. I'm tethered to the Macintosh laptop. I am using a remote trigger. This is one that comes from Booth Photo in Canada, is the distributor. So a lot of people ask me about this. I've never seen them anywhere else. And it's they make them for each camera. And this allows me to have a complete remote trigger wherever I want to stand away from the camera. I can fire that. And so this takes a little bit more, 2 hands on the set. So I've got that trigger set. We're going to shoot at about 400, 500 ISO, I believe what we set at, and 500 ISO. I want it a little grittier, so I'm kind of moving this ISO up a little bit. The higher the ISO, a little bit more noise we get in there, a little grittier. We're using the 24 to 70 2.8L lens on the Canon camera, and we're going to shoot at a pretty middle f-stop. I believe we're set at f11 to start with. And the reason why is I want to pull full depth of field. We'll do a selective focus treatment to this later, where we'll keep it sharp and some parts out of focus. But I don't know exactly which part I want sharp or out of focus. I want all the elements I need at one time, so I'm going to shoot it sharp all the way through and make my selective focus using ON1 Focal Point 2 software to create my soft focus, selective focus type of effect that I would normally do with a tilt shift lens. So let's go ahead and get started. I've sort of got a very inexpensive Omni light. The reason why I like this particular light, I've had it for many, many years, is I've got a handle on it, so I can pick the handle up and I can move around. For this particular technique, I'm going to shoot a bunch of different photographs. Now, I also have something that might look a little odd. I got a piece of broken shower glass. I've probably had this thing in here. You can tell by the look of it, it's been in here about 15 years now. I've traveled all over the world with this one piece of glass. And it used to not be broken, but over a period of time, it's broken, and I've taped it back. It adds to the effect. And what I use this is, it's kind of a way to sort of diffract and break up the light as if it's coming through trees. If you see the spotted light you would get through a cookie cutter in portrait lighting, but we call it like dappled lighting is I guess the best word to say it. And I'm going to create a very dappled look. Let's just take a straightforward shot of it without the dappled light. And of course, I will just fire it with my trigger and see what kind of photograph we have up here on the screen. And it's a little overexposed. It's going to lose a lot more light when I cover it up, but generally it's a little hotter, but you can see that it's a very straightforward light. Now I'm going to go ahead and use my this dappled light through the broken shower glass, and I'm just going to push this right in here, bring it down very low key, and fire that again. I think you'll see this is more in tune for this exposure. You can see how it's coming in a much more deeper exposure. I'm getting hard shadows, I'm getting very directional light, and I'm getting a breakup of the light. So this is I want to just double check, make sure that I'm happy with my focus. I'm happy with the overall exposure here. We are shooting on tungsten. There's really no need for a custom white balance on this kind of thing because I'm using a very warm light. It's going to be what I really want. It's not about the accuracy, but this is a tungsten light. It's based on tungsten. Technically I should shoot one target, so let's just to make me happy later, we want to know what neutral is, we should shoot one shot with a target in there. So let me just pull that out. We'll just use the gray part. We're using kind of different targets with the different shots I've been doing in lessons. This one we'll just use the regular gray target. This is the perfect gray for digital camera white balance. It's the gray that's used with all the high-end digital backs. For leaf back, I've been using that for years, this particular gray. And I want to go ahead and apply the glass because that's part of it. Make sure the light, it might warm it up a little bit. And this I have just in case I need it, I've got one to keep for a gray balance. You can see it's very neutral. So with that, let's go ahead and shoot the real thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the lens. I'm going to get this trigger in my hand so I can, when I see what I need, I can fire it. And so this is when I don't have an assistant or anything. I can kind of do this kind of thing by myself. And I'm looking for different positions. Actually, let me get the string out of the way. What I'm looking for are different positions of the light. As I shoot some, I'll show you what I think are good ones. And from this point on, I don't want to move the set. So I got to be very careful not to bump anything. So, because we're going to register all these images together. So I'm going to come down really low with the light and see what we kind of get here. See if we're getting the ballpark for what I'm looking for. And that's exactly kind of, now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start doing some different lights. I'm going to put the lights in different positions very sporadically. And you can see how different this is going to be. Totally different look. And I'm only going to end up using one of these for the actual shot of the globe. Might be something that might be more like this, get more light on it. But I need to get 5 or 6 different ones of different types of these shots, where the light, I can even come in here and do something a little lower and sporadic. I'll start doing some different ones. As long as the light is not the same in each shot, we'll find what we're looking for. These are all going to be raw shots that I can process in Adobe Camera Raw. And before I move anything on the set, I want to go ahead and just take a look at what I've got in the bridge. And we're looking for primarily shots. Actually, what I'll do is I'll just do the review mode here. We'll kind of look at the images like this is my test image, but we're looking for shots that here the light is going to be in one position. Now the light's going to be in this position. Now the lights come down to this position, wider, sporadically different. You can see each one of these is slightly a different effect. What we're going to end up doing is exchanging the red, green, and the blue channels, and it turns it into basically a rainbow of color. And this is going to look pretty interesting with this type of subject matter. So we'll end up, when we get to Photoshop later, we'll end up taking these images, looking at them, narrow it down to 3 or 4 shots, and do this combined process. Now before I go, I want to make sure if there's any other shots I might need, because remember, we're shooting things in pieces. So if we needed more of just a little bit of a filled-in shot, this might be the time to do that. Just one last shot. If I need a little detail on something, I'm going to go ahead and add, very carefully, just add this fill card right here. I think I just moved the table a little bit, but we can always register it back. And I'll go ahead. It's important to use a set that's real steady, because you notice the one important factor here is the camera's never moved and the set is never moved. Everything's still in perfect register, but the lighting has done different things around it. And that's going to be a kaleidoscope effect of color. And it's a little hit and miss. Over the years, I started to develop how to get more of this and less of that. but it's very much sort of a happy accident that you forced to happen, but the art is recognizing when to stop messing with it. Isn't that really what it's all about? You mess with it and you can mess with it forever, but the art of it is knowing when to stop and say you're done. And that's always been the way with creative Photoshop. So I'm going to take one last shot here where it's just a little more fill. I'm going to fill it in, just gets a little more fill light on that. And this might be a very good shot to have for, in case we need a little bit of fill. This is going to be this last one down in here. Actually, see, that filled in the metal side over here really nicely. That's something we didn't have. And if I want to paint a little bit of this kind of information back in, I've got that as my, the part of the shot that I need to get detail from. And I may only use just a 10 or 15% of that to bring some detail in to separate something from the background. The beauty of it is you're in total control of every part of the shot from the lowest tones all the way to the highest tones, and you sort of mold it all into it from several different shots. Totally different type of an approach than, don't think of it like an HDR, where you're shooting a bracket of images and letting Photoshop chunk away at the information. You're going to paint all the information together from all different regular exposures. We light it exactly where we need it. So I think we'll take it into Photoshop and see how we can make some real art out of this.